Alrighty, if you want to see how we built this deck for the boat and built that seat, stick around for Memphis Monday 151, because that's what we're going to do next. Welcome to another Memphis Monday 151, installing a new floor and seat in a homemade wooden boat. And I've been threatening a boat project now for a long time. Last week we were drying out some deck wood that we're going to make for the floor. Well, today anyway, we're going to install that floor, and I'm going to show you all the process involved with that. And we're also going to build a new, it's called a thwart in boat language, but we're going to use it as a seat, and I think it's going to be pretty fun. So let's knock off the chit chat and get to work. Now I'm putting the floor of the boat in. I'm making my deck planks out of 3/4 inch thick treated deck wood. The reason in the last episode I had it out drying. It doesn't have to be perfectly dry because it's not going to be glued, but I am going to stain it, so it has to be somewhat dry. Of course, I know how long this board needs to be because I measured it, but you saw me mark it in the boat, and that is the process of double checking my measurements. Now what I'm doing here is on all my deck boards, or deck planks, I'm easing the edges. And as I mentioned last week, I'm going to stain my deck planks with this color called English Chestnut. Kind of gives it kind of an antique look. Got a lot of brown in it. The boards, the planks that are up here in the front flare up because, of course, the boat flares up. So I got to put the first screws in at the maximum bend. These are pretty substantial stainless steel screws. This is the second set. I got the first 5 boards in there. Now I need to put in the first board that's going to be butted against the side of the boat here. Let me show you how we're going to do that. Now, to the degree possible, I'm going to, all these boards from their origin to their final destination down there, they're going to be one continuous board. There aren't going to be any joints, say, here. And the reason I'm doing that is because the bottom of the boat is kind of curved, and if I put a joint there, that's going to make, that's just going to make an angle where the joint is. Let's take a look at this terminus here. So right here, this board, this 12-footer, will be up against, it won't be sitting on a frame, it'll be sitting on this ledge here. And so I need to put an angle in here that corresponds to this angle here, and I'm going to do it with a compass, hopefully. By putting my compass and then just following the angle of the boat. Now just trace this cutout. Now you can see that plank fits up on that ledge right there, and then goes all the way down to where I'm ending the floor down there. Okay, I'll go ahead and round over the edges and stain this, and we'll install it. Now I won't be holding this in up there at the very top, up here with screws, but this board will be held in with a total of 14 screws, so it should be secure. Now it's just a question of putting the screws in. Well, I got the long one in. Let me do the other long one on the other side, and we'll have the easy ones done at least. Well, I got those first 7 boards in. I go all the way to the back. They're called bottom boards, by the way. Well, on this last bottom board we did, all we had to do is run it up to the chine log here and set it on there and then trace that angle, and we're good to go. But now we get down here and it gets more complicated. We can't just trace this angle on the bottom board where it comes up against the chine log, because this frame is in the way. Let me show you how I do that. There's got to be a lot of ways to do it, but how I'm doing it, you could make a pattern. I just made a little template out of a piece of scrap, and then just keep working with it until it fits the way I want it. Then I can use this to cut the angle, both the angle for the chine log and the mortise here for the frame. So now I just take my little template and set it on here neatly, and I can just transfer those angles onto my long board. Now you might have noticed when we fit this in place that it was a little loose here. And that's what these lines right here are. That's a correction I put in there when we fit this in place. Okay, to cut out our notch, I will just cut a series of slices into this notch, and then I'll take them out with the chisel. This is pretty much standard way to notch wood. Just put some, this is how they notch rafters and everything else. These things just pop right out, see? As a matter of fact, in this pine, you don't even have to cut all these notches. If you just cut here and here, this whole thing will snap out. You may notice that I have this thing clamped down. And the reason is, and this might be a takeaway, if you have a jigsaw and it's not cutting right, check to make sure that your board's not moving up and down. Because with that reciprocating blade, if your stock moves at all, it won't cut right. Okay, looks like I got a pretty good fit there. But on down the line, it looks like my board is bowed a little bit. That shouldn't be a problem. In a board this long, I can straighten it out as I'm screwing it in. Okay, let me go ahead and round the edges over and stain this thing, and we'll put it in. Okay, here you can see the issue with that warped board. Spacing's all right up here at the top, but then as we go down, it flares out down there. That shouldn't be a problem. I'll attach it up here. I'll attach it there, and I'll attach it here, and then down at the end, I'll just pull that in, put my spacers in there and pull that in. And now I know this spacing's right because I have a spacer on it. I got the first two down there. I got the curve in it. Now I just need to push this thing into alignment. Should be pretty easy. I got your camera set up where you can see what happens. I get this screw started so that I can just drive it home once I get, so here we go. Yeah, that worked perfect. Now it's just a question of putting the other screws in. Tell you what I'll do, I'll go ahead and put the corresponding board in on the other side, and then we'll move on. Putting in the last of the long deck boards. The problem is I ran out of those fancy stainless steel screws. I have some coated deck screws. They'll work just as good, maybe even better. They just won't look as fancy. All the long boards are in. I still have boards to put in the back. But the front up there is pretty much complete, so I'm going to put some Spar urethane on it. I don't know if it comes out in the video, but our deck is coming out real good. Especially after I put that Spar Varnish on it. Okay, we'll finish up our deck by filling in this little area right here. This will just be some real short boards. What I'm doing here is just kind of fitting these last boards in. Kind of dry fitting them, see how they're going to fit. See if I can live with the result. These last 4 boards will be basically underneath the seat. Well, we got the floor in. Let's put us, we have enough time. Let's at least mock in. Let's at least mock in a thwart across here. Our thwart, which we will be using as a seat, will be sitting on these cleats. I put an angle on them, matching the angle that the angle of the ribs. And to get the length of the OSB, I cut this piece of strapping here. The problem is here that the boat, of course, is tapered back this way, and it also tapers out. But I cut my strapping here, and it should fit in there. So let's cut our practice piece this long. We're going to cut the reel sheet out of this, the reel seat, the thwart, out of this piece of 3/4 inch marine plywood. This stuff is about $65 a sheet, so I want to make doubly sure before I cut it that I know what the heck I'm doing. Well, before we cut this plywood, I rearranged my stuff in here. I moved my, remember we had the table saw down here, but the boat interferes with the table saw, and it looks like this table saw, it looks like the boat is going to be in the shop for quite some time, so I moved the table saw back down here at the east end. To get our measurement for this thwart, I will take the little piece of strapping. I don't know what this distance is, and it doesn't matter, because I'm going to make it this long. Now remember, this is not the seat. This is the template for the seat. We're going to make the seat out of that plywood I showed you. And don't go away, because we're going to make that thing out of plywood, and I'll edge it and stain it and install it. And okay, that looks like it's going to fit. I'm putting the braces on our seat. I'm using Craig screws. I've never had any problem with them, but this will be in a protected area, so I think they'll be okay. I'm staining the seat here. What I'll do, I'll bring the boat in, so we can, and we'll install it where we've got good light so we can see what it's going to look like. I'll show you these braces one more time. That's how they go in there. This is some of the treated wood we made the deck from. I cut it down the middle, attach it with pocket screws, and this will keep this thing from sagging. I've done this before, of course, and it works real good. Okay, let's see if it's going to work. I want this seat to be, you know, I want to be able to take it out and put it back in again. I learned my lesson on lightness with the other design. The boat was just too heavy. All right, there we have it. Our Memphis Monday 151. We installed our deck. We built and installed our seat. Stained everything in English Chestnut. The seat is made from marine plywood, 3/4 inch. And the deck boards are made from 3/4 inch treated deck wood. Well, that'll do it for another Memphis Monday. Memphis Monday 151, installing a new floor and seat in a homemade wooden boat. I hope you got some takeaways. I think this is going to be quite an improvement. I think it's going to be lighter, and it just looks better. Looks more appropriate. All that fancy double decks and foam and all that stuff I had in there, I think that just bothered me. But if you enjoyed the episode, give me a thumbs up. Make sure you comment, tweet, Facebook, like, share, all that stuff you do on the internet. But most important, make sure you're back here next week for another exciting Memphis Monday. Thanks for playing along.